I gave birth alone because my son's father decided his last name was too important to be attached to a waitress and a baby he was too scared to claim. That was the thought burning through my head when I walked into Lakeview Women's Hospital in Chicago with one small duffel bag, swollen feet, and contractions so sharp they made the whole lobby tilt. It was 6:12 in the morning, snow was coming down outside in dirty gray sheets, and every woman in that waiting room seemed to have someone beside her. Husbands holding pillows. Mothers carrying coffee. Sisters whispering prayers. I had nobody. The nurse at the front desk looked up from her computer and smiled in that gentle way people smile when they can see your life falling apart but do not want to embarrass you. Is your partner parking the car? I gripped the edge of the counter until McKnuckles went white. He's on his way, I lied. I had gotten very good at saying that sentence. My name is Ava Martinez. I was 27 then, a night shift waitress at a 24-hour diner off North Clark Street, the kind of place where cops, nurses, truckers, college kids, and lonely men came in after midnight looking for pancakes and someone to call them honey. I could carry 6 plates on one arm, refill coffee without looking, and smile through men who thought a $5 tip bought them the right to touch my waist. That was where I met Ethan Whitmore. He came in one rainy Thursday wearing a charcoal coat, expensive watch, and the kind of tired eyes that make a woman believe she can be someone's safe place. He ordered black coffee and toast, then left a $100 bill on a $9 check. I ran outside after him because it thought he had made a mistake. He laughed and said, "Maybe I just wanted a reason for you to talk to me." I should have rolled my eyes and walked away. Instead, I smiled. Ethan was not flashy. That was what made him dangerous. He did not brag about money, even though everything about him whispered it. He drove an older black Range Rover but said helikeyed it because it didn't beg for attention. He wore plain sweaters that probably cost more than my rent. He knew wine, art, and which side streets in Chicago had the best old brick houses. He told me he worked in real estate development but hated half the people in his business. He said I made him feel normal. Back then, I thought normal meant honest. For 5 months, Hamade me believe I had found a man who saw me beyond the apron and coffee stains. He waited outside the diner after my shift with hot chocolate. He fixed the broken lock on my apartment door. He learned that I hated lilies because they smelled like funerals and that I kept every birthday card my late mother had ever written me. He kissed me like he had been starving for something real. But he never took me to his family home. He never introduced me to anyone. When I asked about it, he would look away and say, "My family ruins everything they touch." I thought he was wounded. I did not know wounded men can still wound you. I found out I was pregnant in the bathroom of the diner at 3:40 in the morning, with a drunk guy banging on the door and yelling that he needed tapioca. I stared at the 2 pink lines until they blurred. My hands shook so badly I dropped the test in the sink. I was terrified, yes. I was also happy in a secret, foolish way. Imagine telling Ethan over breakfast. I imagined him going pale, then laughing, then pulling me into his chest. I imagined us scared together. Instead, when I told him, he went quiet. Not angry. Not excited. Quiet. He sat on the edge of my bed in my tiny studio apartment and stared at the floor like the baby was a bill he did not remember signing. "Say something," I whispered. He rubbed both hands over his face. "Ava, you don't understand." That was the first sentence that cracked him. What don't I understand? My family. My father. The Whitmore name. All of it. "I'm not pregnant with your family," I said. "I'm pregnant with your child." He stood up so fast the chair behind him scraped the floor. "I can't do this." At first, it thought he meant he needed a minute. I thought he was overwhelmed. People panic. Men especially panic when life stops being something they can control. Then he opened my closet and pulled out the small overnight bag he kept at my place. "Ethan." He shoved 4 shirts inside. His toothbrush. His charger. A bottle of cologne I had once teased him for wearing because it smelled like cedar and money. "Please don't make this harder," he said. I stared at him, one hand pressed against my stomach, which was still flat then. "I'm not making anything harder. You are leaving." His jaw trembled once. "I'm sorry." He said it softly, almost politely. That made it worse. If I'd yelled, I could have yelled back. If he had called me names, I could have hated him cleanly. But he just became gentle and unreachable, like a coward trying to leave without looking like one. At the door, I said the one thing I promised myself I would never say to a man. "Please." He froze. For 1 second, I thought love might win. Then he opened the door. "I'll call you when I can think." He never called. For 7 months, I survived in pieces. I stopped answering unknown numbers because every ring made my heart jump. I blocked him, unblocked him, blocked him again. I wrote messages I never sent. I cried in the walk-in freezer at the diner because it was the only place quiet enough to fall apart for 2 minutes. Then I wiped my face, grabbed ketchup bottles, and walked back out smiling. My landlord raised my rent by $150 when he noticed my belly and said babies made tenants complicated. My manager cut my hours because customers did not like seeing a pregnant girl waddling around with plates. A woman at table 9 once looked at my stomach and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, that's what happens when girls like her chase men with money. I carried her pancakes to the table anyway. When my feet swelled, I wore compression socks under my uniform. When my back ached, I leaned against the dish station between rushes. When the baby kicked, he whispered to him in the storage room. I'm here. I'm scared, but I'm here. You and me, little man. I rented a cheaper room above a laundromat in Logan Square. The walls shook every time someone ran the dryers downstairs. My window faced a brick wall. Mine was a mattress on a metal frame, and my dresser was 2 plastic bins stacked on top of each other. I kept baby clothes in a cardboard box labeled coffee filters so I would not cry every time I saw how little I had. I bought most things used. A stroller with one wheel that squeaked. A crib with teeth marks on the rail. A diaper bag from a thrift store that still had glitter in one pocket. I folded tiny onesies on Sunday nights and tried not to picture Ethan's hands holding them. By the time labor started, he had stopped expecting rescue. I woke up at 4:58 that morning with the sheets soaked and a pain gripping my lower back like a fist. For a moment, I lay still in the dark, listening to the machines humming below me. Then another contraction hit, and I knew. The driver looked terrified when he saw me standing on the curb, clutching my duffel bag and breathing like I was trying not to scream. Ma'am, are you in labor? No, I lied again, just very pregnant and dramatic. He drove like the entire city had turned into a hospital hallway. By the time I reached Lakeview Women's, I had sweat running down my spine. The labor room smelled like antiseptic, plastic, and something too clean to feel human. A young nurse named Tessa helped me into a gown. Who do you want us to call? She asked. No one. Her hands paused. Any family? I shook my head. She did not pity me out loud. She just squeezed my shoulder and said, then we're your people today. I held on to that sentence for the next 13 hours. Labor was not beautiful. Nobody tells the truth about that. It was animal. It was humiliating. It was my body splitting open while strangers told me to breathe through pain that made breathing feel like an insult. He cursed. I cried. I apologized for cursing, then cursed again. At one point, I begged for me mother, who had been dead for 6 years. Between contractions, I kept thinking of Ethan. Not because I wanted him there. Because I wanted him to know what he had run from. At 7 centimeters, I screamed his name once. I hated myself for it immediately. Nurse Tessa wiped my forehead with a cool cloth and said, he doesn't get credit for this, honey. Tesis all you. At 7:31 p.m., my son was born. His cry tore through the room, sharp and furious, like he had arrived already offended by the world. I collapsed back against the pillows, shaking, empty, and more alive than I had ever been. Is he okay? I gasped. Tessa lifted him, slick and red and perfect. He's beautiful. Beautiful was too small a word. They placed him on my chest, and the world went silent in the way only the most important moments do. He was warm and slippery, his tiny mouth opening against my skin, his fists clenched like he was ready to fight anyone who came too close. I had expected to feel instant joy. Instead, I felt something larger and heavier, responsibility. A love so big it scared me. Hi, I whispered, touching his damp hair. Hi, baby. It's me. I'm your mom. I had not named him yet. I had a list on my phone: Liam, Noah, Miles, Jonah. But none of them had felt real before he existed outside my body. A pediatrician came in to check him because he had swallowed a little fluid during delivery. He was older, maybe early 60s, tall, with silver hair and tired blue eyes. The nurses seemed to know him well. He moved calmly, with the confidence of someone who had seen both miracles and tragedies and no longer confused one for the other. His badge read, Dr. Samuel Whitmore. I saw the last name before I understood it. Whitmore. My heart gave one ugly thud. But Chicago was big. Whitmore could be anyone. There were probably hundreds of Whitmores. I told myself not to be stupid. Dr. Whitmore washed his hands, put on gloves, and leaned over my baby. Congratulations, Ms. Martinez, he said warmly. Let's take a look at this young man. He checked my son's breathing, his color, his reflexes. Then he gently turned the baby's head to examine behind his left ear. The doctor stopped. I noticed it because doctors do not stop like that unless something is wrong. What? I asked, trying to sit up. What is it? Tessa looked over his shoulder. There, just under my son's left ear, was a small crescent-shaped birthmark, the color of light brown sugar. I had seen it when they placed him on my chest but thought nothing of it. Babies had marks. Babies had spots. Babies arrived from God looking like they had been folded in a suitcase. But Dr. Whitmore stared at that little crescent like it was a ghost. His gloved hand trembled. "Doctor?" Tessa said. He did not answer. My body went cold. "What is wrong with my baby?" He blinked hard and looked at me. His face had changed completely, the calm professional mask was gone. What remained was an old grief so raw it frightened Ed more than panic would have. "Miss Martinez," he said carefully, "may I ask the father's name?" Every muscle in me locked. "No," Tessa shifted beside me. Dr. Whitmore swallowed. "I understand this is personal, but I need to know." "You need to know why?" His eyes moved back to the birthmark. "Because I have only seen that mark on 4 people in my life." My mouth went dry. "My wife," he said. "My son. My mother. And my grandfather." The room seemed to shrink. I pulled my son closer, even though he was still in the doctor's hands. "His father's name is Ethan," I whispered. The doctor's face broke. I knew before I said the last name. "Ethan Whitmore." Tessa covered her mouth. Dr. Samuel Whitmore closed his eyes, and for a terrible second I thought he might faint. Then a tear slipped down his cheek and landed on the blue hospital blanket wrapped around my son. "Ethan is my son," he said. Nobody spoke. Not the nurses. Not me. Not even my baby, who had been crying seconds earlier and now lay quiet as if he too understood that a door had opened under all of us. I stared at the doctor's badge. His hands. His face. The same sharp bridge of the nose, the same deep-set eyes. Older, sadder, but there. I felt like I had been punched through the chest. "No," I said. "No, he told me his family was gone." Samuel flinched at that. "No. We are not gone." "He said you hated him." His mouth tightened. "I was hard on him, too hard sometimes. But I never stopped loving him." I laughed once, bitter and breathless. "Well, he stopped loving pretty easily." The doctor looked down. "Where is he?" "Gone." "For how long?" "Since the night I told him I was pregnant." Samuel sat down slowly in the chair beside my bed like his legs had forgotten their job. He took off his gloves. His hands were still shaking. "My wife died 9 months ago," he said. "Her name was Caroline. She spent the last 2 years leaving the porch light on because she believed Ethan would come home if the house looked welcoming enough." I looked at my son. "She never knew?" "No," his voice cracked on the word. I should have felt satisfied. Some ugly part of me wanted his pain to feel like justice. Let Ethan's family hurt. Let someone else bleed from the wound he left behind. But then Samuel reached out, not to touch the baby, but to hover his hand near the blanket as if asking permission from the air itself. "My wife wanted a grandchild more than anything," he whispered. "And he was here. All this time, he was almost here." I did not know what to do with his grief. So I told him the truth. I told him about the diner. The black coffee. The late-night drives by the lake. The night I told Ethan I was pregnant. The bag. The door. The silence. The months of swollen feet and unpaid bills and women whispering over pancakes. It told him I had stopped looking for Ethan because every search result led to a family name that made me feel smaller. Samuel listened without interrupting. By the end, his face looked 10 years older. "I am ashamed," he said. "You didn't leave me." "No," he replied. "But I raised the man who did." That sentence hit me harder than I expected. The nurses finally placed my son back against my chest. He rooted clumsily, his mouth opening and closing. I tucked him under my gown and tried to help him latch while tears rolled silently into my hairline. Samuel stood. "I will not overwhelm you tonight. You have been through enough." That's one way to put it. He gave a sad smile. At the door, he turned back. "Ms. Martinez." "Ava," I said, because hearing him call me by my last name made me feel like paperwork. "Ava," he said softly. "That child is my grandson. But more importantly, he is your son. I will never forget the order of those 2 things." I looked down at the baby in my arms. "Good. If you allow it, I would like to help. Not control. Not claim. Help." I wanted to say no, pride rose in me like armor. I had spent 7 months learning not to need anyone. But my son made a tiny sound against my chest, and I realized pride did not buy diapers. "I'll think about it," I said. Samuel nodded. "That is more than I deserve." When he left, Tessa checked my blood pressure and pretended not to cry. "Do you have a name for him now?" she asked. I looked at my son's crescent birthmark, then at the door where his grandfather had stood. "Noah," I said finally. "Noah Samuel Martinez." Tessa smiled. "Strong name. He'll need one." I thought that was the end of the night. Then, at 11:46 p.m., while my son slept in the plastic bassinet beside me, my phone buzzed on the tray table. Unknown number. For a moment, I almost ignored it. Then I saw the message. "Do not let Samuel Whitmore near that baby. He is the reason I ran." My blood turned ice cold. Below the message was a photo. Ethan. Standing outside the hospital in the snow. It did not sleep that night. Every time Noah breathed too softly, I sat up and touched his chest. Every time footsteps passed my door, I expected Ethan to walk in, pale and wild-eyed, carrying excuses like flowers. I read the message 32 times until the words stopped looking like English. Do not let Samuel Whitmore near that baby. He is the reason I ran. By morning, exhaustion had made everything feel unreal. The city outside my window was white with snow. My son slept curled in the bassinet, one fist pressed against his cheek. He looked too peaceful to have already become the center of a war. Samuel returned at 8:15 with a paper bag from a bakery and a blue knit blanket folded over his arm. He paused at the doorway instead of walking in. May I come in? The manners made meaner than rudeness would have. Did you know Ethan was outside last night? His face changed. No, I held up my phone. Samuel stepped inside slowly, read the message, and went very still. Whatever hurt crossed his face, it was not surprise exactly. It was old pain recognizing itself. What does he mean? I asked. Samuel handed the phone back. He means I failed him. That's vague. Yes. I don't have the energy for vague. He pulled the chair closer but did not sit until I nodded. That small act irritated me because it made him harder to hate. Ethan was 24 when his older brother died, Samuel said. I blinked. He never told me he had a brother. Daniel. He was 29. A surgeon and brilliant, arrogant, loved by everyone, especially by me. Samuel's voice tightened. He died in a car accident on Lake Shore Drive. Ethan was in the passenger seat. Daniel had been drinking. Ethan had not. But Ethan survived, and Daniel didn't. I looked at Noah, then back at him. Your family blamed Ethan? My sister did. Some cousins did. My wife never did. He rubbed his jaw. I did not blame him. But I made him feel like second place his whole life, and after Daniel died, second place became unbearable. Ethan spiraled. Drinking. Debt. Dropped projects. Disappearing for days. I gave lectures when he needed grief counseling. I gave ultimatums when he needed a father. So he ran from you. Ran from all of us. And then from me. Samuel nodded. Yes. That part is on him. For a few seconds, the room was filled only by the soft hospital sounds, machines beeping, carts rolling, nurses laughing faintly down the hall. He was outside, I said. He knew Noah was born. I can try to find him. No, Samuel looked up. I need to think, I said. I need to decide what is safe for my son. Not you. Not Ethan. Me. Heisey softened. You are right. I hated how much I wanted to believe him. Over the next 2 days, Samuel did not push. He came by once each morning and once each evening. He brought diapers, wipes, a car seat still in the box, and a stack of receipts he insisted I keep. When I told him I would pay him back, he said, then consider it a loan with no due date, because he seemed to understand that charity can feel like a hand around your throat. He sked before holding Noah. The first time I let him, his whole body changed. He sat in the chair by the window and held my son like he was carrying a bowl of light. Your grandmother would have made a fool of herself over you, he whispered. I stood by the bed, arms crossed, pretending the sight did not move me. He told Noah stories about Caroline. How she burned toast but made perfect soup. How she planted tulips every spring and forgot where she put them. How she kept a Christmas stocking with no nami on it because, she said, someday one of our boys will give me someone to spoil. Noah slept through all of it. I did not. When we left the hospital, Samuel offered to drive us home. I almost refused, but Chicago streets were frozen, my body felt like it had been rebuilt badly, and I had a newborn strapped into a car seat I barely knew how to use. Samuel's car was clean and quiet. He drove slowly, checking the rearview mirror every few seconds like Noah might vanish if he looked away too long. When we pulled up outside the laundromat, I saw his eyes move over the cracked stairs, the flickering sign, the trash bags piled in the alley. I braced myself. He said nothing. That silence earned him more respect than any speech could have. Inside my room, he carried the car seat up the stairs while I took my time. I expected him to look horrified. Instead, he set Noah down near the bed and quietly fixed the loose window latch with a screwdriver from his coat pocket. You carry tools? I asked. My wife used to say my anxiety had hobbies. I almost smiled. For 3 weeks, Samuel showed up without becoming a storm. He brought groceries and left them on the counter. He sat with Noah while I showered. He cleaned bottles without being asked. When I fell asleep sitting upright with Noah on my chest, I woke to find a blanket over both of us and Samuel washing dishes in the sink. But money changes the air around people, even when they do not mean it to. One afternoon, he placed an envelope on my small kitchen table. What is that? A college account for Noah. My stomach tightened. He's 3 weeks old. Exactly. Compound interest is a beautiful thing. I didn't ask for that. I know. I didn't want him bought. Samuel sat back like the words had struck him. Neither do I. Then why does it feel like every rich person's solution is to put money on the table and wait for poor people to be grateful? He absorbed that. You are right to be angry, he said. I'm not angry. I'm tired. That too. The baby monitor hissed beside us. Samuel slid the envelope back into his coat. I will not open anything without your consent again. I expected him to be offended. Rich people, in my experience, often confused boundaries with disrespect. But he just looked ashamed. That was the first time I realized Samuel Whitmore was not trying to rescue me. He was trying to repent. Ethan appeared on a Sunday afternoon. Noah was 6 weeks old. I had not washed my hair in 3 days. I was wearing sweatpants with formula on one knee and an old Northwestern hoodie Samuel's wife had once owned. Noah had finally fallen asleep after crying for 2 straight hours, and I was standing barefoot in the kitchen eating cereal from a mug because all my bowls were dirty. Someone knocked. Not hard. Not confident. I opened the door with the chain still on. Ethan stood in the hallway. He looked awful. The expensive coat was gone. His beard was uneven. His eyes were red-rimmed, and he had lost weight in a way that made his cheekbones too sharp. In one hand, he held a small stuffed bear with a blue ribbon around its neck. It still had the price tag on it. For 7 months, I had imagined this moment. In every version, I slapped him. In some versions, I screamed until neighbors came out. In others, I slammed the door before he could speak. In the cruelest version, I let him see the baby, then told him he would never be anything more than a photograph my son grew up resenting. But when I saw him, I just felt tired. You have 30 seconds, I said. Heisies filled immediately. Ava. 29, I'm sorry. Worthless start. 25, he swallowed. He was outside the hospital. I know. I couldn't go in. Obviously. I wanted to. I laughed once, cold and ugly. That must have been very hard for you, standing outside while I was bleeding in a hospital bed. He flinched. Good. Behind me, Noah made a tiny sound in his sleep. Ethan heard it. Everything in his face collapsed. Is that him? No, Ethan. I keep a backup newborn in the apartment for dramatic effect. He closed his eyes. I deserve that. You deserve worse. Yes. The hallway went quiet. Downstairs, a dryer thumped like a heartbeat. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said, I'm not asking to come back. I just need to see him once. No, he nodded like he had expected it, but his mouth shook. Okay. That almost made me angrier. Don't do that. Do what? Act noble because you accepted the answer you earned. He looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time I saw the boy inside the man. Not innocent. Not excused. Just ruined. My father found me, he said. When? 2 weeks ago. I stiffened. He didn't tell me. I asked him not to. Of course you did. He drove to Rockford. I was staying in a motel, working construction day labor. Ethan looked down at the bear. He put a picture of Noah on the table and said, this is your son. He is alive, he is healthy, and his mother is stronger than you will ever be. That sounded like Samuel. I hated him for saying it, Ethan continued. Then I hated myself because he was right. I did not open the door. Ethan wiped his face with his sleeve. I'm in therapy. I started last week. I'm going to meetings too. Meetings? That surprised me. Yuri drinking? I was. While I was pregnant? He could not answer. My anger came back hot enough to steady me. You need to leave. He nodded again. I left a number with my dad. If you ever want child support, or medical forms, or anything, child support is not a favor. I know. No, I don't think you do. I'm learning. Learn somewhere else. Ish at the door. Then I slid down against it and cried so hard I had to bite my fist not toke the baby. Samuel came the next morning. I was ready to attack him. You found him and didn't tell me. He set the grocery bag down slowly. Yes. Why? Because he was not ready to be near you or Noah. That was my decision. Yes, he said, and I was wrong. I stared at him, disarmed by the apology. Do Whitmore men ever do anything besides make decisions for me and apologize afterward? Samuel winced. I am trying to be better than my son. Try harder. I will. That should have been the worst of it. It was not. The worst arrived wearing cream wool, diamond earrings, and perfume that filled my apartment before she finished climbing the stairs. I opened the door expecting Samuel. Instead, a woman stood there with 2 men in suits behind her. She was in her late 50s, maybe older, but maintained in that expensive way that made age look like a rumor. Her hair was silver blonde, cut perfectly at her jaw. Her mouth smiled without warmth. Ava Martinez? Yes. I'm Vivian Blake. Samuel's sister. I did not move. May I come in? No, her eyebrow lifted. Excuse me? You heard me. For a second, something ugly flashed behind her eyes, then she smoothed it away. I came to discuss the child. The child is sleeping. The Whitmore child, she corrected. Every cell in my body stood up. He has a name. I'm sure he does. She glanced past me into the apartment, taking in the second-hand crib, the drying bottles, the thrift store curtains. This will be easier if you are reasonable. Funny. I was about to say the same thing. One of the men shifted. Vivian held up a gloved hand to stop him. I understand this situation is emotional for you. A young woman in your position can become attached. Attached. To my own baby. I opened the door wider just so she could see my face properly. You have 10 seconds to get out of my hallway. Her smile sharpened. Noah is Samuel Whitmore's only grandchild. That makes him the legal and financial future of a very old family. He should be raised with the resources, security, and name he is entitled to. He is entitled to a mother who didn't abandon him. Yes, well. She looked him up and down. Love is lovely. Stability is better. I felt something inside me go quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before a woman stops caring about being polite. You mean money? I mean schools. Doctors. Proper housing. Protection from instability. You mean protection from me? If the shoe fits. I stepped forward. Vivian's men moved. Before anything else happened, Samuel's voice came from the stairs. Back away from her. Vivian turned, annoyed rather than surprised. Samuel. He reached the landing, breathing hard from the climb, his eyes locked on the men. I said back away. One of them muttered, "Ma'am?" Vivian waved them down. I was simply introducing myself. You came with lawyers to intimidate a postpartum mother. I came to protect this family. Samuel's face hardened in a way I had never seen. This family is asleep in Akron behind Ava. And if you ever speak to her like that again, you will not come within 10 miles of him. Vivian laughed softly. You always were sentimental when guilt had you by throat. Leave. You don't get to command me anymore. Caroline is dead. Daniel is dead. Ethan is unstable. And now a waitress with a baby has more influence over you than your own blood. Samuel took one step closer. Ava stayed. Ethan ran. You judge accordingly. Vivian looked at me then, and I saw it. Not just dislike. Threat. This is not over, she said. No, I replied. But this visit is. She left with her men, her perfume lingering like poison. Samuel stayed in the hallway after she was gone. He looked shaken. I crossed my arms. Tell me how bad this can get. He hesitated. Bad. I laughed because if I did not, I would break something. Finally. Honesty. That evening, Ethan came again. I almost did not open the door. But Samuel was there, and Noah was awake in my arms, blinking at the ceiling like he was trying to understand electricity. Ethan stood outside with both hands visible, as if approaching a wounded animal. I heard Vivian came. Your aunt called me unstable in my own hallway. His jaw tightened. I'm sorry. If that phrase fixed anything, your family would be saints. He looked past me at Noah. The baby turned his head at the sound of Ethan's voice. It was unfair. Biology is unfair. Noah had never heard that man apologize through a door. He had never watched him leave. He had never worked a double shift with swollen ankles because Ethan Whitmore could not face consequences. To Noah, Ethan was just a low voice, a scent, a possibility. I hated that. And I hated myself for noticing that Ethan loved him the instant he saw him. Because he did. It was all over his face. He did not rush forward, that he did not demand. He just stood frozen, staring at our son like the room had filled with fire. Can I sit? He whispered. I looked at Samuel. He said nothing. My decision. I stepped aside. Ethan entered my apartment like it was a church and he was afraid God might throw him out. He sat on the edge of the chair, hands on his knees. I placed Noah in his arms only because Samuel stood beside him and because I could take my baby back in half a second. Ethan began to cry. Not loud. Not dramatic. Tears just fell down his face while Noah stared up at him with dark newborn eyes. Hi, Ethan said, voice breaking. Hi, buddy. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Noah grabbed his finger. Ethan covered his mouth with his free hand. I turned away. I could handle his shame. I could handle his weakness. I was not prepared for his love. Over the next 2 months, I let Ethan visit twice a week. Not because I trusted him. Because I was watching him. He showed up sober. He brought diapers, not toys. He signed the birth certificate without arguing about the last name. He set up child support through the state because I told him I did not want cash in envelopes like I was being paid off. He went to therapy. He went to meetings. He got a job managing permits for a small construction company owned by a man who did not care about the Whitmore name because he had never heard of it. Some days, I hated him less. Some days, I hated him more because healing is not a straight road. It is a hallway with doors you thought were locked. Then Vivian made her move. It happened on a Thursday morning in March. I was changing Noah on the bed when someone knocked hard enough to make him cry. I opened the door and saw a man in a navy coat holding a folder. Ava Martinez? Yes. You've been served. The papers hit my hands like bricks. Petition for emergency temporary guardianship. Petition for paternity-based custodial review. Affidavit of concern regarding maternal fitness. My vision blurred. Vivian's name was there as an interested family representative. Her lawyer's name was there. Samuel's family trust was mentioned. My apartment was described as unsafe and insufficient. My work schedule was described as unstable. My lack of immediate family was described as concerning. And then I saw it. A signed statement from Ethan Whitmore. My knees almost gave out. I read the line 4 times. I believe temporary guardianship within the Whitmore family may be in the best interest of my son. His signature sat underneath. Black ink. Clean and certain. Noah cried behind me, red-faced and furious. I called Ethan 6 times. No answer. I called Samuel. No answer. Then my phone buzzed with a text from Vivian. You should have accepted help when it was offered. That was the moment I understood they were not just trying to shame me. They were trying to take my child. I did not scream when I saw Ethan's signature. That surprised me. Maybe there are levels of pain so deep your body refuses to waste sound on them. I stood in my tiny apartment with court papers spread across the table, Noah crying against my shoulder, and felt something colder than heartbreak settle into my bones. I had been abandoned once. I would not be robbed. I packed a diaper bag with shaking hands. Formula. Wipes. 3 onesies. The blue blanket Samuel had brought to the hospital, then I tucked the petition into the outside pocket and carried Noah down the stairs into a wind so sharp it cut through my coat. My first stop was not Samuel's house. It was the diner. When I walked in holding Noah, everyone turned. I had not been back since delivery. The neon signs buzzed. The coffee smelled burnt. My old manager, Ray, looked at the baby and then at my face. What happened? I need my employment records, I said. Ray blinked. What? My schedules. Pay stubs. Anything showing I worked until delivery and that I have a job to come back to. He looked at the papers in my hand. Then his face changed. Ray was not a soft man. He had yelled at me over late orders, cut my shifts when I got too pregnant to move fast, and once told me crying in the walk-in freezer made the lettuce wilt. But he had also worked 30 years in restaurants and knew exactly what rich people looked like when they decided poverty was a crime. Sit down, he said. Within 20 minutes, he had printed everything. Then Maria from the kitchen came out wiping her hands on her apron. You need character letter? I stared at her. She shrugged. I see you work double, never steal tips, never leave early. I write. By noon, I had 7 letters. Ray. Maria. Nurse Tessa from the hospital, whom I called in tears. My landlord, who surprised me by writing that I had paid rent on time even when pregnant. A neighbor downstairs who wrote that she had never once heard me neglect my baby. The woman from the clinic where I had taken Noah for checkups. Even an old customer named Mr. Donnelly, a retired school principal who came in every Tuesday for oatmeal, wrote that I had more patience at 3 a.m. than most people have at noon. I did not have a family name. But I had witnesses. At 2:30, Samuel called. Ava, where are you? Did you know? Know what? The petition. Silence. Then, what petition? I almost collapsed from relief, but I did not let myself trust it. Vivian filed for temporary guardianship. Ethan signed something saying it might be best for Noah to be with the Whitmores. Samuel swore. It was the first time I heard him do it. Where are you? The diner. Stay there. I'm coming. No, Ava, no. I'm done being collected by Whitmore men in cars. Tell me where to meet you. A pause. My attorney's office. Downtown. I'll send the address. When I arrived, Samuel was already there, pacing in a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the river. He looked pale, older, furious. Beside him stood a woman in a navy suit with silver braids and eyes sharp enough to slice paper. This is Denise Carter, Samuel said. She is my attorney. I need my own, I said immediately. Denise smiled a little. Good. I was about to say the same thing. That was how I knew I liked her. Samuel looked wounded for half a second, then nodded. I will pay for whoever you choose. No, Denise lifted one hand. Let me make a suggestion. I know a family law attorney who does pro bono emergency defense for mothers facing coercive custody actions. She does not like rich families playing savior. She will like this case very much. Call her, I said. While Denise made the call, Samuel read the petition. His hands shook harder with every page. She used Caroline, he whispered. What? He turned the papers around. Vivian had attached an affidavit describing Caroline Whitmore's dying wish that any grandchild of hers be raised inside the Whitmore family legacy. Samuel's face went gray. My wife never wrote this. Denise leaned over. You're certain? I know her handwriting. I know her words. Caroline would never call a child a legacy. She hated that language. My stomach twisted. Is it fake? Samuel looked at me. Yes. That was the first twist. Vivian had not just come for my son. She had dragged a dead woman into court and put words in her mouth. Denise's jaw tightened. Then we fight hard. The family law attorney arrived 40 minutes later. Her name was Rachel Kim, and she carried a laptop, 2 phones, and the kind of calm that made panic feel inefficient. She read the petition quickly. Classic intimidation filing, she said. Guardianship before a judge looks too closely. They can do that? They can try. Rachel looked at me. But this affidavit about your housing, work, and support system is weak. Insulting is not evidence. We need to handle the Ethan statement. He signed it, I said, and hated how my voice broke. Samuel looked down. Rachel studied the page. Maybe. I looked up. What do you mean? Emian's signatures can be copied, pressured, misrepresented. Or he signed something without seeing the final petition. She tapped the paper. Where is Ethan? Nobody knew. For 6 hours, we called him. Nothing. Samuel called his sponsor. His therapist. His workplace, finally, a foreman answered and said Ethan had left a job site at 11 that morning after receiving a call from a woman. Vivian. By evening, Samuel's breathing had become rough. He kept pressing a fist against his sternum. You need to sit down, Denise said. I'm fine. You are 63, furious, Anleying. I said I'm fine. Then he collapsed. For one terrible second, nobody moved. Then Denise shouted, Rachel called 911, and I stood frozen with Noah strapped to my chest, watching the only powerful person who had ever protected me hit the carpet like his strings had been cut. At the emergency room, they said heart attack. Not massive, but serious. Vivian arrived 20 minutes after I did. Of course she did. She swept into the waiting area wearing black cashmere and concern-like stage makeup. What happened? I stood up. You tell me. Her eyes flicked to Noah sleeping against me. This is not the place for drama. You filed papers to take my baby and forged a dead woman's letter. I think drama found us. Her face did not change, but the men with her looked uncomfortable. Careful, she said softly. Accusations have consequences. So do forgeries. She stepped closer. You have no idea what you have walked into. No, I said. But I know what I'm holding. Noah shifted against my chest. Vivian's gaze softened for half a second, not with love but possession. He deserves more than survival. He has more. He has me. That may not be enough. Before I could answer, Samuel's attorney Denise appeared from the hallway. Vivian, leave, this is my brother. And I am his medical proxy until he regains consciousness. Vivian blinked. That was the first time I saw real surprise on her face. He changed it. 6 weeks ago, Denise said. After you visited Ava. Vivian's jaw flexed. Denise continued, he also amended his trust. Any person who attempts to intimidate, coerce, or legally harass Ava Martinez regarding Noah Martinez is excluded from discretionary distributions. The waiting room went silent. Vivian's eyes burned. You're lying. I wrote the amendment. Vivian looked at me then, and whatever mask she had been wearing dropped. You little idiot, she hissed. I almost smiled. Because for once, the insult sounded like fear. Samuel survived. The doctors placed a stent. He woke up groggy but himself, and when I walked into his room with Noah, tears filled his eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered. If one more Whitmore apologizes to me in a hospital, I'm charging a fee. He laughed, then winced. But Ethan was still missing. The emergency hearing was set for Monday morning. For 3 days, I lived in a state beyond exhaustion. Rachel filed responses. Denise challenged the affidavit. Nurse Tessa agreed to testify. The diner crew organized childcare backup if the judge asked about support. Samuel, against medical advice, recorded a sworn statement from his hospital bed saying Vivian had no authority over Noah and that Caroline's attached letter was fake. Still, Ethan's signed statement sat there like a knife. On Sunday night, Ifnally got a call from an unknown number. I answered with my whole body shaking. Ava. Ethan's voice. Where are you? I demanded. I'm sorry. No. No more sorry. Did you sign it? Silence. Ethan. I signed a blank acknowledgement. The room tilted. What? Vivian came to my job. She said Samuel was trying to cut me out permanently. She said if I wanted any chance at court-ordered visitation, I needed to sign a statement confirming I was Noah's father and wanted to be involved. I was stupid. I didn't read everything. You signed a blank page? I signed a signature page. It was attached to something else. I closed my eyes. You unbelievable, I know. Where are you? Another pause. At a motel outside Joliet. Why? She sent someone to pick me up. Said the hearing would go better if I stayed quiet until her attorney presented me. My skin crawled. Are you drunk? No, are you alone? No, my heart stopped. Who is there? A private security guy she hired. He's outside the door. Ava, I think I messed up worse than I understood. I gripped the phone. Listen to me. Do not sign anything else. Do not get in anyone's car. Send me your location. I don't deserve your help. No, you don't, I said. But Noah deserves the truth. He sent the location. Rachel called the police, Denise called Samuel's investigator. I did not go because Rachel physically blocked the door and said, your baby needs you alive, not heroic. At 1:18 a.m., they found Ethan at the motel. The security man claimed was assisting a family matter. Ethan gave a statement. He turned over his phone. Vivian's texts were there. So were voicemail recordings. One of them changed everything. Vivian's voice, crisp and furious. If Ava keeps that baby, Samuel will leave everything taught him. Do you understand? Everything Caroline protected. Everything Daniel should have had. Sign the statement, stay out of sight, and I'll make sure you get a clean arrangement later. If you don't, I'll tell the court exactly what kind of drunk abandoned his pregnant girlfriend. Then Ethan's voice, quiet, I did abandon her. Vivian, then be useful for once. I listened to that recording in Rachel's office at 7 a.m. on the day of the hearing. For a long time, nobody spoke. Then I said, play it again. Rachel looked at me carefully. Ava, again. She played it. I did not cry. By then, crying felt too generous. The courthouse smelled like floor polish and old fear. Vivian arrived with 3 attorneys, pearls at her throat, and the confidence of a woman who had never imagined a room where money did not speak first. She saw me sitting with Rachel, Noah asleep against my chest, Denise beside us, Samuel in a wheelchair with a hospital bracelet still on his wrist. Her smile flickered. Then Ethan walked in. Not with her. With his sponsor on one side and a police detective on the other. Vivian went white. The hearing lasted 2 hours, but I remember it in flashes. Vivian Saturny calling my apartment temporary and unsuitable. Rachel placing photographs on the table, the crib, the supplies, the clean kitchen, the pediatric records, the support letters. Vivian's attorney saying I lacked family support, nurse Tessa testifying by video that I labored alone for 13 hours and never once stopped asking if my baby was okay. Ray from the diner showing up in his only suit, which was too tight in the shoulders, saying, she worked harder pregnant than most of my staff works caffeinated. Samuel's recorded statement playing in the courtroom because his doctor would not allow him to testify on his feet. Then Ethan stood. He looked at me once before speaking. Not begging. Not performing. Just direct and honest. I abandoned Ava Martinez when she told me she was pregnant, he said. I was drinking. I was grieving. I was selfish. None oft had excuses it. She did not neglect our son. She protected him from me when I had not earned trust. My Aunt Vivian misrepresented documents to me. I did not knowingly support taking Noah from his mother. Vivian's attorney objected. The judge let him continue. Ethan pulled a folded paper from his jacket. I am submitting a voluntary parenting plan request that keeps Ava as primary residential parent. I am also submitting proof of child support deposits and a recovery compliance report. I want to be in my son's life only in whatever way the court and Ava believe is safe. I stared at him. That was the second twist. Ethan had not come to claim Noah. He had come to give up power. Then Rachel played Vivian's voicemail. The courtroom changed. You could feel it. The air shifted from custody dispute to something rotten being uncovered under marble floors. Vivian sat perfectly still, but her hand trembled on the table. When the recording ended, the judge removed her glasses. Ms. Blake, she said, your petition is denied. Vivian's attorney began to speak. I am not finished, the judge said. He stopped. The judge referred the matter for investigation regarding fraudulent filings and possible coercion. She ordered Vivian to have non-supervised contact with Noah. She affirmed me as Noah's sole custodial parent. Ethan was granted only supervised visitation pending continued sobriety and counseling, which was exactly what he had requested. Then she looked at me. Miss Martinez, the court sees no evidence that poverty, youth, or lack of extended family makes a woman unfit. The evidence suggests the opposite. That was when I cried. Not loud. Just one hand over Noah's back, tears falling onto his little hat while Rachel squeezed my shoulder. Vivian stood so fast her chair scraped. This ice absurd. The judge's face hardened. Sit down, Ms. Blake. Vivian sat. For the first time since I had met her, she looked small. Outside the courtroom, reporters were waiting. I had not known they would be there. The Whitmore name still meant something in Chicago: hospital donations, political fundraisers, old money with clean buildings named after it. Someone had leaked the emergency hearing. Maybe Vivian, expecting victory. Maybe someone in Samuel's circle, expecting justice. Cameras turned toward us. Rachel leaned close. You do not have to say anything. I looked at Vivian across the hallway. She was surrounded by attorneys, her face stiff, her public mask trying to crawl back into place. Then I looked at Noah. I stepped toward the cameras. My name is Ava Martinez, I said. My voice shook, but it held. I am not a scandal. I am a mother. My son was not born into a legacy. He was born into my arms. Anyone who thinks money can turn motherhood into a negotiation should remember that women like me may not have family names on buildings, but we know how to survive. Nobody moved, then Ray, standing behind me in his too-tight suit, started clapping. Maria joined. Nurse Tessa, watching from a phone screen Rachel held up, was crying. Samuel closed his eyes. Ethan looked at the floor. Vivian walked away. The story made local news for 3 days. Whitmore family custody fight raises questions over power and class. I hated the headline, but not as much as I expected. For once, people were not whispering over pancakes about the pregnant waitress who got left. They were talking about the family who thought a mother could be bullied out of her own child. Samuel recovered slowly. He moved into a smaller house near Lincoln Park because, as he told me, the old Whitmore mansion had too many ghosts and too many rooms for people to hide bad behavior in. He visited Noah every Saturday, always asking first, always bringing something ridiculous: tiny socks with bears, board books, a wooden train, a winter hat with ears. Ethan kept showing up too. Supervised at first. Then longer. Never easy. Never simple. There were days I looked at him holding Noah and felt rage rise so fast I had to leave the room. There were days he said something ordinary, like, "Do we need more wipes?" And I wanted to scream that he did not get to sound like a father after missing the hardest months. He never told me I was unfair. That helped. He went to meetings. He stayed sober. He paid support. He learned how to change diapers, how to warm bottles, how to walk Noah in circles when he would not stop crying. He sat through parenting classes with men who looked half asleep and took notes like there would be an exam. Once, when Noah was 8 months old, Ethan found me in the kitchen wiping the same counter over and over. "You can hate me today," he said quietly. I froze. "Inno," he continued. "I'm not saying that to sound noble. I mean it. You can hate me and still hand me the diaper bag. You can hate me and still expect me to show up. I won't run because your anger is inconvenient." I turned around. "That should not be impressive." "No," he said. "It should be normal." We stood there in the quiet. "It's not forgiveness," I said. "I know. It's not trust. I know. It's a schedule." He nodded. "Then I'll respect the schedule." That was the beginning of something. Not love. Not yet, something steadier. A year after Noah was born, Samuel invited me to a small memorial dinner for Caroline. I almost said no. The idea of sitting at a Whitmore table made my skin itch. But Samuel said, "She would have wanted to know you," and for some reason that broke through me. The dinner was not at the mansion. It was at Samuel's new house. Denise came. Rachel came. Ethan came with Noah's favorite stuffed bear. No Vivian. No pearls. No lawyers pretending intimidation was concern. Samuel had placed Caroline's photo on the mantel. She had kind eyes, wild curls, and the crescent birthmark just below her left ear, exactly where Noah had his. After dinner, Samuel handed me a small velvet box. I stiffened. "It isn't money," he said quickly. Inside was a silver baby spoon, old and polished, with tiny initials engraved on the handle. "C.W. Caroline's," Samuel said. Her mother saved it. She wanted the first grandchild to have it. I touched the spoon with one finger. "I don't know what to say." "Say you will keep it only if you want to." I looked at Noah, who was sitting on a blanket trying to chew the ear of his stuffed bear while Ethan gently redirected him. "I'll keep it," I said. Samuel's eyes filled. Later that night, after Noah fell asleep in the portable crib, Ethan and I stood on the back porch while snow drifted under the porch light. "I found something," he said. My body tensed out of habit. "What?" He handed me an envelope. Inside were printed emails. Vivian's emails. Some were to Ethan from months before he left me. They were full of poison dressed as advice. She told him he was not built for his world. She warned that women like me got pregnant on purpose. She said Samuel would use any scandal to control him. She told him if he tied himself to me, he would become the family disappointment permanently. I read them slowly. Each line was cruel. But none of it excused him. Ethan knew that before I said it. "Shouldn't make me leave," he said. I let her tell me what I already wanted to hear because fear is easier when someone else gives it words. I folded the papers. Why show me? Because I don't want any hidden doors left. If you hate me with the whole truth. The whole truth. That was rarer than love. When Noah was 2, he took his first real steps in Samuel's living room. He had been wobbling for weeks, using furniture and knees and human hands, but that day he stood near the coffee table with applesauce on his shirt and determination on his face. Samuel sat in an armchair. Ethan sat on the floor. I knelt a few feet away with my arms out. "Come here, baby," I said. Noah grinned. He took one step. Then another. Then he swerved completely away from me and crashed into Ethan's chest. The room went silent for half a beat. Then Ethan laughed and cried at the same time, lifting him carefully. "That's it, buddy," he whispered. "If you fall, I'm here." The sentence landed in the room like a promise and a confession. I looked at him. He looked back. This time, I did not look away. We did not become a perfect family. I do not believe in perfect families. Perfect families are usually just quiet families with better curtains. We became a family with rules. Ethan did not move in. Not for a long time. He earned Sunday mornings first. Then school pickups. Then emergency calls. Then trust in small, boring, beautiful pieces. He learned that love was not dramatic speeches. Love was being the person who brought infant Tylenol at 2 a.m. Love was remembering extra socks. Love was not taking offense when I checked his breath in the doorway after a hard day because some wounds heal with scars that still ache when it rains. Vivian was eventually charged with filing false documents and coercion-related offenses. Her attorneys made it smaller than it should have been. Rich people are very good at making consequences look like misunderstandings. She lost her role on the hospital foundation board. Samuel cut her out of the trust. She sent one letter asking to begin healing as a family. I sent it back unopened. Some people call that bitterness. I call it knowing the difference between forgiveness and unlocked doors. When Noah was 3, I left the diner. Rachel helped me apply for an administrative job at a community clinic. I knew billing codes, appointment schedules, and how to calm angry people who were really just scared. The clinic manager said restaurant work had trained me better than any office could have. Within a year, I was running patient intake. I bought a small used car. Then a better apartment with sunlight in the kitchen and a bedroom for Noah painted soft blue. The first night in that apartment, I stood in the doorway of Noah's room and watched him sleep. No laundromat machines shaking the floor. No brick wall outside the window. No fear of someone calling my home unsafe, because it was all I could afford. Samuel came by with pizza and cried when he saw the room. "Happy tears?" I asked. "I'm old. All tears are multipurpose." Ethan laughed. I did too. That laughter surprised me most, not because it was loud. Because it was easy. On Noah's 4th birthday, Ethan asked if we could talk after the party. I knew something was coming because he was too quiet while cleaning cake from the floor. When Noah fell asleep surrounded by dinosaurs and wrapping paper, Ethan sat across from me at the kitchen table. He placed a small box between us. I stared at it. "No," he blinked. "You didn't even let me open it." I saw the box. "My answer is no." He exhaled, then nodded. "Okay." That almost made me smile. "You're not going to give a speech?" I had one. "I bet you did. It was pretty good." "I'm sure." He looked down at the box. "I'm not asking you to marry me tonight because I think a ring cleans anything. I know it doesn't. I'm asking because for 4 years I have learned what staying means, and I want to keep learning it beside you, not as someone you have to manage from a distance." My throat tightened. I said no. "I heard you. But not forever." His eyes lifted. I hated that hope still looked good on him. "I'm not ready to turn survival into a wedding," I said. "I'm not ready for everyone to clap because the man who left came back and behaved. That story is too easy. It makes my pain look like a prologue to your redemption." His face changed. Not hurt. Understanding. "You're right. I know I'm right." He smiled faintly. I tapped the box. "Ask me again when Noah is 5. He laughed once, shocked. "Is that a yes later?" "It's a maybe with a calendar." "I can work with that." He picked up the box and put it back in his pocket. Then he stayed and washed dishes. That mattered more. When Noah was 5, he stood between us in Samuel's backyard wearing a tiny suit jacket and sneakers that flashed red lights when he ran. Samuel had planted tulips along the fence for Caroline. Nurse Tessa came. Ray came. Maria came with enough food for 40 people. Rachel cried before the ceremony even started and threatened anyone who mentioned it. Ethan did ask again. This time, I said yes. Not because the past disappeared. Because it had finally taken its proper place behind us instead of between us. During the vows, Ethan did not promise never to fail. I had told him not to insult me with impossible things. Instead, he promised never to hide, never to let shame make decisions for him, and never to confuse forgiveness with permission to stop earning trust. When it was my turn, I looked at him, then at Noah, then at Samuel standing beside Caroline's tulips. I walked into a hospital alone, I said. I thought family was something other people had, and demands your obedience. Family is the person who sees the door open and chooses, every day, to walk in gently. Noah got bored halfway through and asked if cake was happening soon. Everyone laughed. That was the sound I remember most. Not the vows. The laughter. Today, Noah is 7. He has Ethan's eyes, my stubbornness, Samuel's habit of asking questions at the worst possible time, and Caroline's crescent birthmark under his left ear. Sometimes he touches it in the mirror and says it looks like a tiny moon. He knows the simple version of the history. He knows his dad was not ready and had to learn. He knows his grandfather found him at the hospital. He knows his mother was very brave. Someday, when he is old enough, I will tell him the harder version. I will tell him I was not brave because I never cried. I cried so much I thought my body would run out of water. I will tell him I was not strong because I did everything alone. I was strong because when help finally came, I learned to ask whether it respected me before I accepted it. I will tell him love is not the person who says the prettiest thing when the room is warm. Love is who stays when the room gets ugly. And I will tell him about the day he was born, how he screamed like a fighter. How a doctor turned his little head and found a crescent moon behind his ear. How that tiny mark cracked open a rich family's lies, brought an old man to tears, dragged a coward back into the light, and taught his mother that she had never been as powerless as people wanted her to feel. I used to think Ethan leaving was the worst thing that ever happened to me. It was not. The worst thing would have been believing him. Believing that I was disposable. Believing that money decided who deserved a child. Believing that a woman alone in a hospital bed was automatically a woman defeated. I was not defeated. I was becoming. Before Noah, hot survival meant making it to the next paycheck, the next shift, the next rent payment, the next morning without breaking. After Noah, I learned survival can become something bigger. It can become a home with sunlight. A child laughing in dinosaur pajamas. A grandfather reading bedtime stories in 3 different voices. A man washing dishes quietly because he knows promises sound better when they are backed by soap, water, and time. Sometimes, late at night, I still remember the old apartment above the laundromat. The cold floor. The cardboard box of baby clothes. The phone that did not ring. Then I hear Noah call for me from his room. Mom? And every old ghost goes quiet. Because I answer. Every time. That is what saved us in the end. Not money. Not a last name. Not a courtroom speech. Not even love by itself. Presence. The kind that shows up when it is inconvenient. The kind that knocks softly instead of kicking doors open. The kind that understands a mother is not a stepping stone in someone else's redemption story. I gave birth alone. But I did not stay alone. And if anyone ever tells my son he was saved by the Whitmore family, I will correct them gently. No. He saved us from becoming them.